Hey, assalamu alaikum. What's up, everyone? This is Malik, Bhai, and today we're going to be talking about Ramadan fasting and intermittent fasting. Is there even a difference? I mean, you're staying away from food for a certain period of time. For most of us, it's 16, 17 hours. At the end, we get the same amount of healthy benefits. Is it even the same thing? Is there even a difference? Let's find out. So before we get started, let's talk about what is Ramadan fasting and what is intermittent fasting. So Ramadan fasting is something that Muslims follow, where they are staying away from food and water and intimacy for a certain period of time. We'll talk about that. And of course, intermittent fasting is pretty much the same thing, where you are staying away from food for the ones that a lot of people follow is 16-hour fast, and you have an 8-hour window where you're allowed to eat and 16 hours where you're not. So let's find out what is the difference between both of these, Ramadan fasting versus intermittent fasting. Number one, spiritual reasons. Ramadan fasting is for spiritual reasons. Allah or God says in the Holy Book of Quran that fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to the people before you, so you may attain God consciousness. You don't get God consciousness by doing intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is simply for dietary purposes. Now, while you're doing this Ramadan fasting, of course, there will be healthy benefits as well, related to your health, and of course, you're giving your system, your body a break from food. But that is not the major goal. Ramadan fasting is, as God has mentioned, that it is for you to gain God consciousness, while intermittent fasting is the number one goal is for healthy benefits. Number two, intermittent fasting can be done any time of the year. Ramadan fasting can happen only, you guessed it, in the month of Ramadan. Now, Ramadan is a month. It doesn't just always fall in April or May or June. It is actually a month that is according to lunar cycle. So Muslims follow a calendar, and it changes a little bit different from the one that the rest of the world follows. And Ramadan right now in 2021 is falling in the month of April, and but it changes every year. So when you talk about Ramadan fasting, you're fasting only in the month of Ramadan, which could be 29 or 30 days, while intermittent fasting can be done any time of the year. Now, Ramadan fasting is not the only fast that Muslims do. There are other opportunities on a weekly basis and on special occasions that you are fasting as well. But again, it's the same process, the same methodology. But when you say Ramadan fasting, it is happening only in the month of Ramadan. Number three, major difference. In intermittent fasting, you're allowed to have water, and you're staying away from food, right? That's it. But in Ramadan fasting, it is fasting of not just food, but it's also fasting of staying away from bad habits. Of course, again, this is a spiritual exercise. So you're staying away from things that that are impermissible for you. You're staying away from food, water, and intimacy. While intermittent fasting, it only says you can have water, you can have intimacy, just don't have food. Take a break from eating solid foods. So that is a major difference between what you're not allowed to do in Ramadan fasting versus intermittent fasting. Okay, number four, the timing. Now, most of the people, it's easier if you stop eating, let's say at 6 p.m. So for intermittent fasting, you stop eating at 6, 7 p.m. and you wake up the next day. And of course, by 7 a.m. in the morning, it's 12 hours. You wait another 4 hours. And so by 10, 11 o'clock, you start eating. You have your first meal. But you've already drank, water when you woke up. And that gives you a break of 16 hours because you slept most of it. And then you have 8-hour window of eating from about 11, 12 o'clock until 6 p.m. or so. So that is something that a lot of people follow. It's easier to do, but the goal is, of course, take about, some people say it could be 10 hours, some say 12 hours, some can go 16, depending on how much you're able to handle. But in Ramadan fasting, there's only one way, which is from sunrise till sunset. And when I say sunrise, I don't mean like, let's say you have horizon and you see the sun coming out of horizon, right? That is basically what we believe is sunrise. But when we say you should not eat after a certain time in the morning, that morning starts when the first ray of sunlight comes. So right now, let's say about 6:30ish or 7 o'clock is the sunrise time. About hour and a half before, so in my region, it's about 5:15 a.m. So 5 in the morning, that is when you have to stop eating. So the timing has to be very fixed. It cannot be just take a 16-hour break any time of the day. It has to start from morning. And when I say morning, I mean the first ray of light that comes, right? And then it goes all the way till sunset. And when I say sunset, yes, like let's say you have sun, you can see it's coming down, and as soon as it hides from the horizon, you can't see it anymore. That is when the sunset time starts. So Ramadan fasting is from morning till sunset, while intermittent fasting is 16 hours a day, 12 hours a day. You decide, and it could be any time of the day. Number 5, Ramadan fasting is mandatory, and intermittent fasting is as you wish, depending on your mood. It's voluntary, right? So Muslims, those who belong to the faith of Islam and they call themselves Muslims, for them, one of the pillars of Islam is that you must fast in the month of Ramadan. Like I said, that you can fast throughout the year, but fasting a month of Ramadan is not voluntary. It's not something that is good if you do it, but if you don't, it's okay. No, it is mandatory, and it is something that you must do. You cannot back out of it. While intermittent fasting, it's not a law. So that's another difference between Ramadan fasting and intermittent fasting. And last but not least, linking it back to spirituality, any action that you do, Muslims believe that in the month of Ramadan, any good deed that you do, the reward is multiplied many times, right? Compared to the rest of the year. It is a holy month. It's a spiritual month. Of course, you're going to gain healthy benefits, but at the same time, you are staying away from the things that God has told you not to do, and you're trying your best to do things that you should be doing. And the more you do good things, the more your reward will be multiplied in this month. It's basically a boot camp, right? This is a time where you can gain all the good habits, stay away from bad habits, and you're staying away from things that you're allowed to do, such as intimacy and food and drink. So you take a break from those and try to do as much as you can. The reward is multiplied. While in the intermittent fasting, the benefits are mainly physical benefits, the healthy benefits, but there's no reward in the afterlife, which is a huge part of a Muslim theology. And with that, these are the 6 major differences between Ramadan fasting and intermittent fasting. Comment below, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time in another video. This is Malik Bhai. Assalamu alaikum.